Hi, with the fishing license sales increases experienced throughout the United States last year, state agencies have been looking into who are these new and reactivated anglers, what do we need to know about them, and how can we retain them? We've been talking with a number of state agencies that have been implementing angler surveys. States like Tennessee, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Michigan, Texas, Oregon, and others have undertaken angler surveys via SurveyMonkey or extensive human dimension surveys, all to gain a better understanding of the 2020 anglers and to inform retention efforts this year and moving forward. Two states leading efforts are Tennessee and Wisconsin. They have completed their surveys, are analyzing results, and strategizing on their retention efforts. We invited Tennessee and Wisconsin here to share their research insights and their retention marketing ideas with you. And now I'd like to introduce Jenifer Wisniewski, Outreach and Communications Chief with the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency.
Hey everybody, and thanks Stephanie for giving us a good intro. I'm Jenifer Wisniewski with the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, and here to talk to you a little bit about what we're going to do to retain the surge of licensed buyers that we had in 2020. So this is all about retention. Just as an overview, last year, we saw this coming, and we were as proactive as could be to try to take advantage of the terrible situation that we were all in. So we updated verbiage on all of our digital ads to make it be distance yourself, get a fishing license. We sent emails out to people letting them know how they could get outdoors safely during the pandemic. We did updates to all of our public service announcements. We do an agency podcast called the Tennessee Wildcast, and we sent that to all these radio stations that had all of this airtime to fill now that there was no sports and things like that. So we got a lot of new play for our radio podcast on the radio stations, as well as our TV show on TV stations, on local air stations. We used influencers like you wouldn't believe. So last year we had 14 different influencers that we worked with, ranging from Bill Dance to Kathleen Madigan, and we just had a surge of licensed buyers. So I'm going to let you see one of the spots that we did with Kathleen, because I just think it's a good example of a great way to work with a partner.
What's happening? It's me, comedian Kathleen Madigan, and right now I'm in my fishing boat on Old Hickory Lake. Now, here's the thing. Did you know if you were fishing or hunting on public lands, you need a license? Well, you do. All you got to do is head to gooutdoorstennessee.com, buy your license. You can get it digitally, or I chose for a couple extra bucks to get the super cool card. There's my name. No one needs to look at my weight. I don't know why they needed to know that. Other than that, I do think it's pretty cool. So get outside, Tennessee. It's beautiful.
So that's a good example of what an influencer ad can look like. I never even got to meet Kathleen or see her, but she recorded that by herself, sent it to us, and then we were able to use it as a paid ad. She also shared it through her social media channels. So that's kind of an example of how we work with influencers. But you can see some of the creative stuff that we have stolen from other agencies. This was stolen straight from Georgia. I hope you guys copy it too. Stole this from Utah. Great stuff out there. We've all been creative and gotten people outdoors through this past year. We used our officers to make sure people were doing things safely and legally, following any kind of local guidelines. We used, again, another social influencer, a professional fisher lady, Christine Fisher. And Josh Phillips, another influencer. But really, when you look back on 2020, we had 208,000 first-time license buyers in Tennessee. That's up 30% from last year, which was the first year that we had an increase in 10 years. So these numbers are just huge. We had $55 million in total license revenue, which is up 15%. We drove $4 million in digital ad revenue with spending $438,000. So if you look at that cost benefit to what we invested, that's something that you can definitely take to the powers that be and say, hey, there's great value in investing in digital ads. We were able to drive $1.3 million in email revenue through direct click-throughs via triggered messaging, via certain lapsed communications throughout the year. We've got 70,000 people signed up for auto renew this year. It's amazing. And we've still got 165,000 lifetime license and about 1 million folks in Tennessee that have a privilege to hunt and fish. So great things happened in 2020. So what do we need to do now? We need to retain them. So back in the fall, we sent out a survey to 3 groups of people: first-timers, long-term lapsed, and people that purchased for the first time online. I sent it out SurveyMonkey. It was, it was not a scientific survey, but there's still some great takeaways from it. This was, a team of 1 with some help from our license vendor from Brant. We were able to get this survey out to all of those groups. You see 2 different messages that went out. So long-term lapse got some different things than first-timers, so they got more resources about how to, where first-timers got information about what you can do with your license year-round. You'll see we also put a cookie for them, a treat, so that they got a discount on Onyx there, so you got an incentive too. But see what we found out. Oh, sorry. We had 3,150 responses out of the over 100,000 emails that we sent out. So what did fishing help you do during the pandemic? It helped with stress relief, time with family, put food on the table, not as much, picked up a new hobby, not as much, but produced a way to get outdoors, provided something to do that followed social distancing guidelines. So, there were some really good little pieces of information there. Who did you fish with? Did you go by yourself or go with somebody? Everybody fished with somebody. So it's a social activity that people are doing. How likely are you to recommend fishing to a friend or family? Whoa, look at that. Very likely. We like to see those numbers. So maybe that could inform our Refer a Friend program, that we could better market that to people. How many times did you go fishing? This was a shocker to me. More than 10 times. People didn't go fishing once and put the rod down. Most of them went 3 to 5 to 6 to 10 to more than 10 times. So this is something that people did regularly, that we could probably give them some information about where they can go, and they would pick that rod up and go fishing some more this year. So did this deter you from not wanting to go again? So we asked if they caught a fish. So the people that said, no, I didn't catch a fish, they got this question. So if they didn't catch a fish, did it deter them from wanting to go fishing again? No. 80% of people said it didn't matter if they even caught a fish. They didn't do it to catch a fish necessarily. This one blew our wildlife biologists away because they think it's all about catching fish. So you could see the light bulbs going off on some folks' faces when they saw this. Will you buy a fishing license next year? By golly, most of them intend to. So maybe we just need to remind them that, hey, fishing's still good. Go fishing. And please check which types of information would help you get outside more often, have a better time outdoors. Where to go? Always. It's always where to go, isn't it? So where to go, season opening, closing dates, tips and tricks, family excursion ideas. There's biologist reports, how-to tutorials. So these are all of the things that we need to focus on to make sure that we have the resources out there to get to people. And then there's a chunk of people that have everything that they need to know. So let's make sure that we're not inundating those people with unnecessary information. So there were the results. Now what? So we got to put this survey data to use. So that people didn't care that they caught a fish, but they did care about amenities. They did care that there was a restroom on site. They did care that there were picnic tables and those types of things. So they did care that there was bank access, that most people were fishing from shore. So we need to focus as an agency on these amenities, maybe more than stocking fish at this point, since 80% of people that didn't catch fish didn't care that they didn't catch fish. Well, let's invest some of that money that we're doing as stocking and invest it in making sure our amenities at all of our locations are as up to par as they can be. Again, survey data is helping all the people that work at the agency, not just biologists, all of us really understand R3 and what we can do to retain people. There have been some big light bulb moments from this survey data, and there's other research out there that RBFF has done, as well as, if you look at Southwick has done some great persona work. There's some great research out there. So if you don't have a survey like this, use the research that's out there to help you make informed decisions about what you're doing and making sure that we're retaining these folks. So how can we make 2021 the year of retention via marketing? Well, here's what we're planning on doing. We're having tons of virtual classes and populating a virtual learning center. So we've been doing classes from knot tying to, we've done a lot of hunting focused classes. We're looking at doing some boater education classes. We are doing any and every kind of virtual learning that you can think of, even just backyard wildlife identification and wildlife tracking. So all of those virtual classes we put in our event system that is linked to our license database, so that if somebody registers for one of these virtual events, then we can track that license purchase behavior afterwards. And we're also populating these things on our website as part of the virtual learning center. We're doing more community fishing lakes. We're stocking those lakes that are nearby population centers, and then we're advertising those opportunities to the people that are close by geofencing social media ads to those places. We're simplifying fishing reports and maps. The number one thing people want to know, is where to go. So we got to make sure our maps are really simple for people to understand and that they're mobile friendly so that people can find where to go on their phone. We're doing onboarding emails. So there's a series of emails when you purchase a license, and it's different for different groups of people. If you're a first-time buyer, you get a different slew of emails than if you're a long-time buyer. We're doing partnerships and incentives. So you'll see an email here where we partnered with Academy and Alabama and did a 2-state lapsed message and tried to get folks to renew. Those types of partnerships work really, really well. And if any other state would like to do this with Tennessee, just give me a call and we'll figure out how to make it work. We're investing more in digital ads. Social influence are huge right now. It's so great to have a Kathleen Madigan or a Bill Dance or a country music artist, and you can develop a persona around who that artist is or who that personality is and market to the people that would most like to have information from that person. So the social influence are a great investment for agencies, and our return on ad spend on social influencers has been even better than just the generic go fishing ads. Pushing people to refer a friend. You saw how many people said that they would be very likely to recommend fishing to a friend. So let's make sure that we're telling them about the referral program and making sure that we put in our messaging, invite somebody with you. And then geofencing. Last year, we geofenced boat ramps with huge success. So we drew an imaginary border around boat ramps that were really busy and served people that didn't have fishing license up ads that said, fishing is the best thing to do on a boat. And those were wildly successful. Community lakes, talked about geofencing around those. So doing targeted outreach to people that live close to waters that they're fishable, and events. So doing things like farmers markets and any kind of wilderness or wildlife festivals. If you geofence those areas and tell them, support wildlife, buy a license. Those types of messages have been very effective. This is an example of one of our drop-in fishing events. We just go to a community fishing lake, we put it on Facebook, we advertise it, it gets people out there, and we teach them how to fish. So going into the future, we are increasing retention efforts 100%. So we're using social influencers, again, to amplify our message, brand partnerships, we're doing more marketing automation, personas, to keep those markets targeted and those messages targeted. We're creating personas around these ads. And then my goal this year is to keep 90% of the people that fished last year. and then build on that for this year. So I hope that I can challenge all of you. Let's all try to keep 90% of our customers. We're going to continue to fill empty airtime. You know, people have gotten used to hearing our podcasts and other information from the agency. So we're going to keep pumping that info out. And we're going to keep doing digital education and outreach efforts and continually improving our website. So gotta have a shout out to Tucker here. This is my friend Jason Harmon's kid. He's got his first fish there, but it's probably not his first fish, but the first fish of the year. But I hope you all have learned something from the presentation. You can see my email up here. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them. Thanks so much, and I'm going to kick it over to Karl Scheidegger next.
Hey everyone, Karl Scheidegger, Fisheries Biologist for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. I appreciate the opportunity to share information with you this afternoon. We will continue our discussion on angler retention. And with that said, do me a favor, please. Hit your chat button, jot down your state and your retention strategy you hope to implement in this coming year. And maybe by the end of this session, we'll have a nice national perspective on the strategies we'll be using in 2021. So if you could do that, that would be greatly appreciated.
Your state and the retention strategy you want.
Let's take a look and see what we found in Wisconsin in that crazy year that we called 2020. I try to think of R3 in fishing terms. When you're recruiting someone, you're luring them in and you're setting the hook. And once the hook is set and you want to retain them, you play them gently, but you try to keep them on the line. And if by chance you lose them and need to reactivate them, you try another lure or maybe another approach and entice them to bite again. This afternoon, I wanted to concentrate on the retention aspect, keeping them on the line, specifically talking about Wisconsin's first-time anglers and strategies to keep them around. It is no secret that outdoor recreation was very popular in 2020. A survey that RBFF conducted showed over 93% of the respondents had an increase in fishing license sales. And Wisconsin was really no different. We showed a significant increase in resident fishing license sales, and we needed it badly. We had just come off 4 consecutive years of declining license sales. So the jump in 2020 was actually very welcome. We basically broke even from 2016 through 2020 now. But when we looked at other license purchasing groups, we found a nice increase in our first-time buyer fishing licenses. Resident male and female licenses showed a 104 and 103% increase from 2019 license sales. We decided, given the circumstances and the pandemic situation, the increase in first-time buyers provided us an opportunity to get to know them a little bit better. Our analysis services section, Ben Beardmore in particular, shout out to Ben, kudos for creating a fantastic survey. He conducted an online survey in October that consisted of first-time buyers, adults, and they could be residents or non-residents. There were over 9,000 surveys distributed, and 2,642 responses were received, a 30% response rate. Survey was very comprehensive. It summarized first-time buyers' motivations, beliefs, preferences, and experiences on a variety of topics. And if I'm not mistaken, the final report will be completed soon, and I guarantee you it will be full of a lot of good information. And there were some key takeaways from the survey, answers to critical questions that could be developed into some actionable retention strategies. And we're going to be looking into some of those a little later on. So who are these newcomers? The analysis found that there were basically three distinct groups. New anglers who fished for the very first time, active anglers who were more experienced and fished in other states, but were fishing Wisconsin for the first time, so kind of the non-resident aspect, and reactivated anglers, those who were returning to fish after a period away, and they had to be at least 10 years away to qualify for the first-time buyer license. And interestingly, more than half of the new anglers were women, while almost 70% on average of the active and reactivated anglers were men. Trip duration is usually related to the distance from home and is always important information. Fishing trips for more than half of the new anglers were short, less than 4 hours, while the active anglers were more inclined to have the longer, more vacation-like trips. Active anglers concentrated their efforts more on game fish, reactivated anglers targeted panfish, and the new anglers were satisfied with whatever bites. And I guess that makes sense. When you're a new angler, you'll take anything at the end of your line. Several questions were asked to help improve the user experience. Where to fish information always seems to rise to the top, so there's no surprise that all groups wanted this information. And not surprisingly, tips and tricks were wanted by new anglers. Reactivated anglers would like to see more family excursion ideas. And like tips and tricks, how-to information was very welcomed by the new angler group. And our more advanced active anglers wanted more detailed biological or survey information, so species or population level information could be used to decide where they might be fishing next. Now, more than half of the respondents were satisfied with their 2020 experience, and that's fantastic. They indicated they were planning to purchase a license in 2021. However, there was a large group, 40% in fact, of the component that was undecided. And these are the folks that need some encouragement. And hopefully with some of what we plan to do and an increased social presence, their indecision will be replaced by go on fishing in 2021. This particular graphic shows some great insight into messaging for the upcoming year. Much of it is pandemic related. Fun, family time, outdoors, the beauty of nature. Actually, when asked if COVID affected their decision to purchase a license, over half said not at all. But there were clearly fewer competing activities. And so coming up in 2021, we're definitely going to have to look into ways that we can compete with the other activities. And we'll definitely have to deal with it when it happens. So strategies, with what we've learned, what can we do? Well, the first thing we want to do is keep fishing on their minds. So we will be sending a thank you bulletin through GovDelivery to a lengthy list of first-time buyers, and we'll remind them to relax, enjoy the outdoors, and have more fun in 2021. We will be conducting an email marketing project with multiple GovDelivery bulletins prior to the season opener. Again, fun, family, memories will be the focus. We will include a buyer license call to action, but we'll use a little softer sell. We'll provide additional information like close to home regulations, where to fish, fish identification. We're going to be tracking links through our analytics program. And we've recognized that email marketing is generally beneficial, so we will be looking into institutionalizing this in the future. Close to home fishing information was identified as an important need. We've got our popular Milwaukee area shore fishing publication and a more recent complementary e-version. With the COVID situation, we developed some more close to home fishing opportunities, but we need to work with our biologist staff to expand on this particular series and look more into the urban and rural areas and create a more mobile friendly version of this. This information is very wanted by everyone, and so we need to take the time and create some quality information on where people can go to fish. All the information we develop and present needs to be available on all platforms. And for the first time, we now have a mobile-first website that was launched in 2020. And how important is that? Well, there was 150+ percentage increase in first-time buyers under 30 years old in our first-time buyer survey. And I don't have to tell you how mobile is critical to that particular age group. Our more experienced anglers indicated they wanted more biological information. As such, we will be restructuring our survey reports, kind of more of a one-stop shop where they can get everything they need right there. We will also be developing a more visual mapping format for surveys with kind of an ArcGIS application. Combined recreation can improve the user experience and something that has been on our radar for quite some time. We want to improve our relationship with our Department of Tourism and collaborate on activities. You know, we know the fish, they know the other leisure activities, and I think the partnership could be definitely advantageous to our anglers. And so we need to hit the Department of Tourism and work with them on these strategies as well. Ultimately, we want to just be able to hit the button. We want to create a user experience that makes fishing easier for first-time buyers, plus everyone else. It doesn't have to stop at the first-time buyers. We'd like to create an easily accessible one-stop approach, and actually something like this. This is an ArcGIS online Fish Wisconsin hub application where you can put down licensed vendors, bait shops, a lot of different visual geographical information where you can actually zoom in on a certain location and see what facilities are there, where you can purchase a license, where you can buy minnows. There are places to fish. We have our boat access sites, trout program, trout regulations, calendars, fishing regulations. If you have a question, we could put our biologist information on this hub as well. We can share your fishing success with photographs. I got one photo gallery. Record fish information could be part of it. We can stay connected with angler community with our proposed What's Biting network, but there is a bunch of information that could be put into an application like this, and it's responsive, so it can be done on the laptop, on the tablet, and on the smartphone. But I think it provides great information all in one spot, and I think it would be very beneficial to all anglers. And last, but certainly not least, is addressing the challenge of measuring performance. We currently have a dashboard that allows us to look at specific demographics. For example, millennial women in southern Wisconsin who trout fish. And we could actually look at specific analytics of those particular demographics. But we need to bring it up to date. With an updated dashboard, we can actually look at developing performance standards. And right now we're losing those 4 years that have shown some declines, and then the last year that showed a tremendous increase. So once we get it updated, we're going to see if we can set those performance standards, see if we can hit them, and then by using some of those strategies that we will try to implement. So basically, we need to keep fishing fresh and on the mind of our anglers and prospective anglers. We need to continue to include safety messages given the current situation, but ultimately we need to try to promote fishing fun in 2021. And so I think there's a big challenge there, but I think we can all meet it, and I'm excited to get going this coming year.
Good stuff. Yeah, that was awesome. I love that session very much. What a way to close it out today. Karl, Jenifer, that was really great. A lot of people asked in the chat, as you may have seen, if they can get access to the research. Jenifer's in particular was a little bit hard to see on the screen. I suspect you're okay with that. Be fantastic to connect that with the other attendees. Stephanie, I'm told that we're going to put together a webinar. I think there's some details in the chat, or at least agreement in the chat, a webinar with Jenifer and Karl and other states about retention activities specifically. So we'll be able to dive even deeper on this topic soon. So be watching your info for details about the future webinar. Jenifer, can I bring you on camera here for a second? I got a quick question for you. Great presentation, by the way. Thanks.
Thank you.
Tana asked, hey, how do you vet these influencers? She's had some concerns with content posted or promoted by influencers that maybe isn't fully appropriate. And you can only control influencers so much. What's your best recommendations there?
Yeah, so we scroll back through the history of anybody that we're putting a pitch together for and make sure that, they haven't historically done anything crazy, but then there's, we have an agreement with them that just basically says, if you do anything dumb or stupid or that we don't agree with, then we terminate everything. So
Great.
Going forward, we make sure that we cut all ties with anybody that, again, does something crazy. But yeah, we do try to vet them a little and look through the history of their social channels to make sure that they don't do anything crazy either. And like with Kathleen Madigan, she's a comedian. She says some wordy dirds and some other things, but with your targeting, you can target the right audience that isn't going to be offended by that too.
Yep, absolutely. People don't target more specifically enough. Karl, a quick question for you on your research. What's the finding in the research that surprised you the most?
I guess maybe not surprised me the most, but I guess pleasantly surprised was that basically over 80% of the people that were surveyed were satisfied with their experience, which was great. We don't have to do a lot of work on trying to convince them that they had a good time fishing. But I think what we do need to do is look at that 40% of the undecideds and make sure that we use the right strategies to retain them. I guess the other thing that was surprising to me was these are all first-time buyers.
Right.
But it was real interesting that there were actually 3 groups of first-time buyers that all had a little different perspective on their fishing experience, that probably all need to be messaged a little bit different in their fishing experience. And so I think we've heard it over and over again already, that you need to segment, you need to consider your audience, you need to be able to message specifically to those people. And so I think that's the challenge that we face.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you again, Karl, Stephanie, for putting this together. Jay Wiz, terrific as always. Friends, we did it.